Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Good Guys Talk Back, episode 222. I am Nick Murawski, and this is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. Find it everywhere. We are everywhere. What a week for our Chicago White. What a weekend for the Chicago White Sox, who are now 22-33. Just when you thought they were back, they turn in one of these performances in Detroit. With me, as always, my very good friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Nick, happy Sunday night. Happy Monday morning to those who are going to listen tomorrow on Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day weekend to all. It's funny because we sat here last week and I don't know how much blame he does get, but we were praising Joe Kelly and how wonderful he'd been in this past weekend. Obviously, he had a rough one. Not surprised that, he will get hit eventually. Wasn't going to be as elite as he had been for about a month or so. But it was just unfortunate because there's two games that were probably in hand that slipped through our fingers. We really snatched defeat from the jaws of victory twice.
Yeah, he I was listening to the ending on Saturday on the radio. Connor and DJ had the call, and they basically said, which, hey, he's been lights out. It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen. But those pitches, I mean, they weren't very competitive that he was thrown in there on Saturday. I mean, the velocity was up, but they were catching a ton of the plate, and Detroit was just ready for him. And then on Sunday, he's on the mound again. I don't know what was going on with Luis Robert Jr. in center field, just kind of sliding around and let the ball get past him. Tim Anderson for the second time in a couple of weeks, can't find the ears on the ball, tries to throw home before he actually has it. The fundamentals with this team, nothing is going the way I thought they were going to go under Pedro Grifol. Things happen. Things absolutely happen. But fundamentally, here we are towards the end of May, and I'm still like, how is that still happening? How are those mistakes continuing, these lapses with this ball club? But Pat, I mean, what are some takeaways here for you with this weekend series? Sox lose 3 of 4 in Detroit. They wrap up their 13-game stretch against the AL Central, going 8-5. Did you have anything that really struck with you? Disappointments, excitements?
Well, I think the one thing that stood out to me is the obvious that I tweeted about. If you're gonna watch a team score 12 runs in a night game and they're gonna have a day game, and they had a perfect game being thrown against them, I think almost through 6 innings. He was broken up in the 5th, or maybe it was the 6th, whatever it was. I don't know what it doesn't matter if it's this team or teams we've rooted for in the past, different guys, anybody that puts on that uniform and that ball cap and that's the situation that comes up. I don't know what happens with them in the ability to hit. You can't be the pitcher every time it comes out. They can't be facing the best pitcher in the world the next game and in that situation. So that's always what stands out to me. And you just mentioned it, Nick, with the fundamentals. You have Tim Anderson basically going from hero to zero in a couple of innings. They talked about how great his instincts were on the base paths to score that, goal. I think it was the go-ahead run at that point. Was they went up by a run, went up 5-4, whatever it was. A big run scored, a lot of energy being shown, and then you have an opportunity to cut a guy down at the plate, and you can't make the play. It's just unfortunate, and the reason why this team has to hit 2 home runs a game to be the ultimate deodorizer. And when they don't hit home runs and score, if they don't have multiple run leads late in the game, eventually their fundamentals will catch them up with them.
Yeah. I mean, Friday was fun. If you're able to watch it on Apple TV, double-digit runs, double-digit hits, nice bounce back after the series loss with Gio on the hill. What a frustrating game that was. I mean, he looked absolutely lost. So they come back and they pound a starter that they really should have pounded, a left-handed starter that had like maybe an ERA over 7. This is a guy that traditionally over the last few years, it felt like, man, hey, thank goodness there's a lefty on the mound. I think maybe it was 2020. Maybe that was the year where it was, wow, we just ate their lunch. And
Yeah.
it hasn't been as magnificent since, but I feel like it still happens. There are guys that have pretty good numbers against left-handed pitching. Maybe I'm imagining that because I'm still thinking about that great 2020 year where
Yeah.
the record we had against left-handed pitching, it was insane.
Mm-hmm.
That was good to see them jump all over, and Lynn, what did he throw? Like 54 pitches or something in 2 innings, and he was able to kind of bounce back. And and then classic, like you'd said. I mean, this, if you're new to White Sox baseball, you're like, what is going on with this team? How can you just pound a team like the Sox did and then show up, hours later because it's a day game and look lifeless? That's who they are. That
Yep.
is how it happens. I don't get it, but that is how it happens. A tale as old as time, and they were pretty much asleep for most of Saturday, and Sheets got them going with that bases clearing double, and we covered kind of the downfall with Joe Kelly, but what I'm just continuing. Look, they are their record right now.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
20-33, and that's who they are. Yeah, they're playing in an AL Central division, and sure, it's tempting to think about a division championship, and it doesn't seem like anybody kind of wants to win the division right now. And Detroit playing some pretty good baseball, and for their, in their world, and compared to the AL Central when we came into town. So, they were very patient against the White Sox pitching. Issued a ton of walks, especially in the series opener. I mean, just 7 walks he might have had.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday, the bookends, you got a guy like Dylan Cease, Pat, who he is, he's got that nasty slider, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And he's throwing chase pitches. Okay. He's throwing things that, well, this is how I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you to make a mistake, do something you don't want to do. And they were not doing that. They had a lot of discipline. And when that is the case, your pitch count is going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of full counts he had and this, that, and the other. So I guess I'm just, I wanted to think, hey, this team's back. All right, they're back. They won 3 series in a row. And hey, it's anybody's game in this Central, but when you lose 3 or 4 to the Tigers and you have that kind of effort, I'm sorry. Like you're 22-33, and I failed to really get excited until you're over 500 and can stay over 500 and play consistent baseball and get big performances now from the guys that we were supposed to get them from. TA, Moncada, Robert, Aloy came back. Hopefully he can get going soon. So it's a little bit of everything from my mind.
Well, I will say I was happy with the effort of coming back in 2 games when it looked like they had no business of being in those games. So it's unfortunate again that this team just can't get out of its own way. And to give the Tigers some credit too, because they just looked inspired. They looked like they felt like they were supposed to win 3 out of 4 games. They looked like I don't know. They looked intimidating for whatever
reason.
Who manages
I don't know that team, by the way.
Oh, it was somebody that somewhere there's a piece of paper that says White Sox manager AJ Hinch. That was
watermark,
got it out there a little early. But it's just again a team that looks like maybe they have a little confidence going on that side of the lines there, and I don't know. It didn't look like. Even today, I went into the 9th inning and I didn't feel comfortable with it being 5-4. I never feel comfortable anymore when it's Javier Baez coming up, because for as much as that guy can really look uninspired and do some really silly things on the field, it seems like he gets up for us, and it doesn't matter if it's a little chopper to the shortstop or whatever it might be. He always seems to be in the middle of it and igniting his team. So and Baddoo, he just looks like he's a guy that's going to kill us forever and a day. So I don't know. I'd like to think that this team is closer to what we saw in Cleveland and less about what we've seen over the last 2 days, Nick. But I don't know. Time will tell, I guess. There still is that opportunity to kind of execute Hester plan. And that Hester plan is get to 10 under by the end of the month. That's still within shot, and then cut it to 5 and then get back to 500 by July. I don't know if that'll happen, but there's still an opportunity for that to happen.
So we're a few days away from the end of May. Sox are 14-12 right now in the month, so they can go over 500 for the month of May if they sweep the Angels. Is that right? That would be, yeah, because May 31st is your last game against the Angels, and then you have a day off on Thursday. So that could happen. I'm sorry, they are above 500. Sorry, yeah. So they're in good shape right now. Which is what we were talking about, I guess, out of April. Is like, we'll win the month of May.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about just climbing, and trying to get to 5 games under 500
by the end of June. I mean, I think it's somewhat doable because this team was, what were we coming into this month? I mean, again,
8-21 out of April.
So you can, if you can cut it to 10 games under, and again, we're talking about a team that's floundering and is not very good. Okay. But again, I still believe that this division will wait for you in this. And the teams in this division traditionally haven't been super aggressive at the break. And a lot of teams are going to be wondering, what are we supposed to do? We can probably still win this division without putting all our chips in. Do we want to sacrifice what we have in the farm system to maybe, just, get a win in the playoffs? I don't think there's a good enough team out there, and these organizations function mentally a lot like our organization does. They're all the same. It's like, I don't know if we really want to spend a lot of money and make a lot of moves here. We can win this as it is. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a lot of teams doing a lot of same stuff, I think, as we get into July.
So I was kind of wrestling with that idea after today's game, and I think maybe lately, of like, where am I at as a fan? Like, what direction do I want to go? Where's my hope lie? And there is a part of me, Pat, and I'll admit it, where I kind of want to see just this team just tank. I just want to see the L's start piling up, and for them to have to absolutely make a decision then by the trade deadline. So they're out of it. Like, there's not even a chance in the AL Central, and they just have to absolutely be sellers, because we need to pick a direction almost. And it looks in the future, things are murky with guys that are going to be leaving after this season. Guys like Tim Anderson, which I don't know where he's going to be at in terms of what uniform will he be wearing after this season. Well, I mean, look, he could be a guy. What I'm saying is they might move, if it's to the point where we're not in it right now. And but he's also got to be playing pretty well. That's the other thing, unless somebody says, well, we know this guy's body of work and we think like we really need this type of guy. We think we can breathe some life in him, like an LA Dodgers or something. And then you got Giolito and others, but there's a part of me also that says, to your point, this division is this division, and we can win this division. And is that, do you take solace in that? Does that make you feel comfortable and rosy? Like, well, you know what? We were at the top of a horrible mountain, and that doesn't make us a very good team, but we survived it, and we get to play, we have playoff baseball. But the next few years are really confusing, because I don't like, we weren't able to get anything back for some of these guys that are going to walk.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, Nick, I think it's more about, and maybe this is a dumb way to look at it, but I think if you would go into it, if I did anyway, I won't say you, I won't speak for you, but for me, to just say, if we won this division somehow, some way, by hook or by crook, and we get in the tournament, that you just go, nah, oh man, we missed an opportunity to cash in on some guys. We're going to get it bounced early anyway. We don't go to the playoffs that often, Nick. If we're a fan of another team and we're fans of the Yankees, and it's like, oh, we got no shot this year, because you can go fall back on the fact that, we'll probably be back in it again the year after year after year. And we've got 27 or whatever it is, world championships. We've seen a lot of success. We can let this one go by the waysides and just let it let it be, and maybe we'll build for the next year and do the right baseball thing and make the right baseball moves. But this organization is so lack of actual postseason appearances. I don't think that you just take that for granted and you go, well, we'll just see what happens next year. I much would rather just win this division, get in, knowing that we'd be a huge underdog against anybody we play. And, maybe the good Lord shines on us and we catch fire somehow in some way, shape, or form. That's what I'd rather do. It's probably a dumb business way to look at it from a sports business aspect and wanting to build your team for the future. But again, I also look at it as I have zero trust for the people making those decisions. So you might as well just try and get in.
Well, I agree with that. I don't trust Hahn. I don't trust Williams. I don't trust anybody in this front office, especially Jerry Reinsdorf, to figure out what the correct decision would be if they were to be sellers and set this team up for success for the next few years and beyond. But what you just said reminds me of this quote, and I'm glad you had kind of said that, because I had this quote prepared. About a month and a half ago or so, Jerry Reinsdorf went to that, I don't know, owners conference, or he spoke at some kind of thing. I don't know why they asked him to speak. And, he doesn't open up his mouth too often for the reasons why, because he's just so tone deaf, and the things that he started waxing on about, it just seemed clueless. But he did hit something that I'm kind of, I'm wrestling with here. And this was one of his quotes. Sports is a business of failure. Only one team is going to win every year. But the fact that you finished second or third or fourth, it doesn't mean you had a bad year. I think the important things for fans is, while they want you to win championships, they want you to know that when you get to the last month of the season, you still have a shot. You're still playing meaningful games. If you can do that consistently, you'll make your fans happy. And that's really where we are here. I feel like this season is a perfect Jerry Reinsdorf quote. It mirrors that, because really what could happen with this division is we are going to have some exciting baseball maybe in late August and in September, because at the trade deadline, we might be 3 games out of the Central. We might be 4 games out. I don't know. And they're going to say, well, we're not going to make moves right now. We're going to stay the course unless they white flag trade it. They do something like that. And that would come from some sort of, business sense, or, they would mask it. So it seems like, well, we have no chance, but really it was because there was some financial thing going on that they didn't want to really address in the long run. But I really think, going off of that quote, that's more of the road we're going down. I honestly, with this division, I don't think they're going to be buried by the trade deadline. I think it's going to be too close, and there's still going to be a decent amount of baseball left with this division. The only thing that could go horribly wrong, and it's possible, is that the schedule in June and July just eat the Sox up. Yeah. And then it becomes, well, we're not playing the AL Central anymore. We're actually playing some big boy teams, and we realize we or the Sox step up to the plate, and everybody is clicking on all cylinders. I don't know, man. These different roads and these different paths and directions make it really maddening.
Yeah. Well, and what's going to be really maddening, and you talked about the division, and a reason I'm looking over like this weirdly and going off screen is because I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm just looking at September's schedule. There's 16 games that they have against the AL Central, but it's all in the front half. It's all the front half. So the back half of September and into October, the first day in October, I think it is, Washington, Boston, Arizona, San Diego. So you have no games against your division to end the year. So those again, this is assuming that we've been able to come back and make it competitive, and we've gotten through the trade deadline. Maybe we've, done nothing or added, certainly not just, got it down to the studs again. It's going to be really hard to win a division at the end, Nick, if you're not playing teams within your division the last 2 weeks. So it really makes, and again, with the way the schedule is, with the balanced schedule, playing less games against your division also doesn't help this team now. Now, you had mentioned, what did we go in this stretch against AL Central teams? It was
8-5.
8-5. Now, if you zoomed out, and we talked about that last week, and I, again, this old sports radio conversation. If I had told you this, what would you have said? So if I would have told you they'd go 8-5 against AL Central, you would have probably said, given what they've looked like, you say, okay, that's acceptable. It's not great. It's to me, it would be somewhat acceptable. But when you watch it and see how it all unfolds, it's completely unacceptable, because you had 2 games that slipped through your fingers, and those are big games. That's a what, 2, 4, 6. That's a 4-game swing, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of where you're at versus the Tigers. So I don't know. It's really. It's going to be really tough with the amount of games we have against the division, the way it ends up, and the way that the schedule is going to really line up. It's going to work against you.
You got to win those types of games. You got to win this game on Sunday. You absolutely have to. No surprise to anybody that the Sox couldn't get the ghost runner in the 10th inning. That's not a surprise, and it's not a surprise that Detroit was able to. Saturday, real heartbreaker. I thought they were going to bounce back with Cease on the mound, who was like 10-0 or some crazy number lifetime against Detroit. I mean, he threw 102 pitches through 4 innings. I mean, you're just giving us no chance here.
Yeah.
It's really, and the previous outings for Cease have been efficient. 3 strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
That means his pitch count hasn't gotten high. He's been going 5, 6, I think 6. He's gone the last few outings. That's what I'm looking for. Hey, let's talk positive in terms of pitching. And then I want to get your thoughts on, well, there's 2 positives, but I want to get your thoughts on guys playing out of position. What's going to happen here now with, Aloy being back, Andrus maybe on his way back any day now, all that stuff. Michael Kopech is become just a beast. And last 2 outings, he's gone 15 innings, 19 strikeouts, 0 runs, handful of hits, 1 walk. I mean, back-to-back outings, Royals, Cleveland. He is on the mound Monday on Memorial Day against the Angels, with the Sox coming back in town for a 6-game homestand. He is fun to watch right now. Talk about a guy who's just oozing confidence, trusts his stuff, just filling up the zone with a fastball, first pitch strike constantly. Here's what I got. I'm coming right at you. He is working quick. I mean, everybody's working quick, but he's working even quicker than you're supposed to with this pitch clock. He has been a joy to watch. It's going to be fun to see what he's got in store on Monday night.
Yeah, he's got that poise on the mound right now, Nick. Like nothing phases him. He knows exactly what pitch he wants to execute and what count at what time, and he's putting it exactly where he wants to put it. And the most devastating thing is the breaking ball in the zone is an unhittable pitch. And he's like, I'll even tell you, I'm going to throw it to you. You won't be able to hit it, because that's how confident I am with it. It's devastating. And now, can you package this up and have this over an expanded period of time? It's been, really 2 great outings in a row. It's probably not going to go that way, unfortunately, tomorrow, but can we get something close to that? Because that would be fantastic. And then you feel like a lot better about the trade that went down years ago, because again, the hype that this guy got just getting here, and then it kind of went up like a firecracker. It was in the air, and then it blew up because of the injury. And then a lot of controversy surrounding him in his personal life. A lot of people, giving him a hard time for the sitting out during the COVID year and not wanting to participate, and then having to come back and not pitching for, God, was it 2 years or whatever it was, not really knowing what we had. He had shown some great flashes out of the bullpen, though. And we really were excited about a lot of those opportunities. And now coming back, seeing it come full circle, working his way into being a starting pitcher. I hope this is the ascend, right? We just hope it's not like once in a while type of thing. He's not going to be this dominant every outing, Nick. We know that. But we see the talent. We salivate over it. We get excited for the next start for Michael Kopech. And, Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing pitch tomorrow. It's going to be great. Again, I don't know what to expect. The Angels are coming in. They've got a lot of talent on that roster, obviously. So this will be a little bit of a step up in terms of offensive talent versus what we saw, in the Guardians and the Royals. But it'll be a good test for him. And again, to stay within himself, continue to have that poise and focus, and be in the zone like you talked about. You don't mess around. Go after guys and be aggressive in the zone.
In terms of stuff, you're not going to have that A+ stuff all of the time. He has kind of had it back-to-back outings. I think the Royals, it was like A++. Cleveland, It was A. And so I think what I think you're going to get from Kopech is the confidence still.
Yeah.
Something has unlocked with that. And he is Mr. Mindfulness, where he is really focused on a balance between baseball and personal life, and stepping away and being able to just turn things off and just be at peace, which that is tough to do. He's been working at it. And I think he needs that. He absolutely needs that, to be successful on the mound. And it just seems like something has now all lined up for him with outside of life and baseball and health. And he just believes in himself. He believes in what he's got. He trusts. He's not worried of where this ball is going to go when it releases my fingers. I don't know if I can hit that spot. He is just believing he can. And he's working with Sebi, which I think that should continue on Monday. It seemed like they have a good relationship right now. So that's what I think you'll get out of him. Now, will his curveball be off the table? Will he have that type of spin? Will it be that sharp? I don't know. Like those are the different things where pitchers will just say, it just left my hand, it left my fingers, and it was just like, it felt effortless. It was biting exactly how I wanted it. It went where I wanted. That is the stuff that could change on an outing to outing, and sometimes control, right? And that's what I worry about with Michael Kopech, is the control, because once he gets off the rails, it's very difficult to get him back on. And he's had the control in his favor, just one walk in 15 innings, something like that. The velocity, all that stuff has just been so great. It's like, okay, we'll now do it a third time. Angels are, I think, 28-25, 5.5 games out in the AL West. We should miss Ohtani in the series, but Angels have got some guys that can play. They got a team, obviously, that's got some superstar capabilities on it, and it's going to be very different than the AL Central. Another guy that's returning, I saw it on Sox social media not too long before we hit record, is Liam Hendriks. He is going to be back. And so, an evening game, Memorial Day, Sox back in town. Could people flood for the Liam Hendriks return? And then you've got Kopech on the mound. It's going to be a beautiful day. It could be a nice crowd on Monday.
It could and should be. I mean, if I was able to go to this game, I would, just because of Liam Hendriks. Whether he gets in the game or not, just being able to be there in the building, he should get a fantastic ovation. And who knows? I mean, I would like to think, it seems like he's been a good clubhouse guy. It seems like he is, but you never know how you never know how that kind of personality goes with the team all the time, if it works really well, or if it's a guy that kind of like, it just wears on you after a while because he is who he is. But he's seemingly a fantastic dude, right? But there are dudes that are seemingly fantastic dudes that just wear on people after a while. I don't know what people think about him in the clubhouse, really. But I hope if he is a guy that we'd like him to be, or think that he is, him just being there maybe could be an emotional lift for this team, right? I mean, listen, if you can't get inspired to play your best damn baseball because of this guy, I don't know what's going to get you inspired to play hard. And I hope that it can spark this team in some way, shape, or form. The problem is, it's hard to have inspirational leaders that are pitchers, because they're only out there every fifth day. And especially a relief pitcher that, a closer at that may not get an opportunity, all the time. He might not be in every day, or he's in the bullpen most of the game. So I don't know. I don't know
He's
how much you
there.
draw
I
from
mean, his
that. Yeah.
presence is there.
Yeah.
He's around the team. He's, he seems to be mixing it up with just about everybody over the last couple of years.
Hmm.
A guy you absolutely want. The talent, of course. The resume speaks for itself, and just the spirit.
Hmm.
Just the humanity. I mean, he is such an unbelievable person. And yeah, I mean, he's back. It sounds like it on Monday, and we'll see. We'll see what we got. But he was talking recently. Like, look, I almost to the effect, and I don't want to put words into his mouth, but like, I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me. Like, I am still, I wouldn't be back here if I wasn't knowing what I could do, because
Hmm.
I'm such a competitor, and I'm going to be mad at myself if I'm walking guys or if I'm giving up hits. Like, I'm holding myself to a pretty high standard here. And I think, like, if he didn't think, or if the Sox didn't think he was 100%, then I don't think they would put him out there, right?
Yeah.
Like, that would not be fair. That would not be the right decision. So not just to bring him back to give like a boost, but bring him back because you can provide. Like, you
Yeah.
are kicking butt right now, and we want you. You're part of this team, and you're an amazing reliever. So
Yeah.
you're back. You're healthy. Great. Welcome.
What do you envision? So I'm going to paint you a picture here. He comes in and he's closing the game out, and he's got the first two outs, and it's Ohtani up for the third out. How hard do you think he's throwing a fastball in that situation?
Oh, he'll hit 100. He'll hit 100 miles an hour. There's no question about that. If it'll be in the zone, I don't know. That thing might just go flying, to the backstop or something. He'll be juiced. He'll be just so pumped, and
Yeah.
everybody behind him is going to be wanting to make that play to close down a tight game, to get him a save if that's the opportunity. It's exciting,
Yeah.
just to paint those pictures of what we could be watching here this coming series here.
Let me
With the
ask you a
Sox back
question,
in town.
just to maybe just off the beaten path. I just because an interesting thing that was floating around the office was people talking about wanting to go to the series or games during the series because the Angels are in town, but people being upset that thinking that we'll miss Otani pitching against us. How does as you as a fan, because I don't know if I've ever asked you this type of question before. I don't really know. Would you go to a game for the opposing team's star and go, oh, I got to go to that game because of this? I feel like that happens a lot. Like it used to happen a lot in the NBA. Oh, the Knicks are in town and it's Patrick Ewing or it's whoever, right? They're in town and the big star is coming to town. How do you feel about that?
I think if I had to choose a game in a series, and I was able to look ahead, and I said, well, again, if I didn't go to a lot of games, right? If I
Yeah.
just had like a few games that I could choose from, I would probably look to see what kind of pitching matchup it was. And in terms of, did they have a superstar on their team that I have not seen before that I would like to watch in person pitch?
Hmm.
Last year, I went to see the Sox play the Angels, and Otani did not pitch, but he hit, and I
Hmm.
got to see him hit, and he got sat down. I don't think he did much against the Sox in that game that I was at. Sox pitching handled him well. I was at the Chris Sale, Jose Quintana game several years ago when
Yeah.
Chris Sale first came back in a Boston uniform. And I think I purposely wanted to go to that one just to see Sale. And I
Yeah.
wanted to see that whole, comeback thing. I've seen Verlander because I wanted to see Verlander.
Hmm.
It was like, this was years ago when he was with Detroit, and it was just, he was like, I want to see how the Sox line up against this guy, because
Yeah.
he was so dominant years ago in mid 2000, late 2000s. So it's not something that I'm like, I have to do that.
Hmm.
I'm such a pitching geek,
Yeah.
that. For Trout, sure, you're watching, generational talent. But pitching, I like seeing that. I
Yeah.
like seeing that live, like what they're able to do and how they make Sox hitters look, and all that kind of stuff. And in the other sense, when we've had dominant pitchers on our, show up for Kopech on
Yeah.
Monday, because right now he's in a zone.
Hmm.
But years ago, it was, Course Sale days, right? It's like you try to go for a Chris Sale game. And last year it was Dylan Cease. Absolutely. And a few years ago, it was like, well, Giolito's on the mound. That's going to be a win. So there's been those moments where if you're hemming and hawing like on a game for the series, like, yeah, I will always look at the pitching matchups.
Yeah. And you just said something very interesting that I think is think about where this team could be right now if this was the case. You talked about Giolito a couple years ago and how dominant he was. Cease how dominant he was last year, and now Kopech how he is now. These guys are all still on the same team. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be
How
amazing
about this one, Pat?
if you had the best of all of them right now?
2021, Carlos Rodon. I mean, that was like you wanted to go to a Rodon start. I saw his no hitter.
Yeah.
You were looking at the schedule like, oh, we got a Rodon game. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
He's dominant right now. Yeah, it's sad that not everybody's been clicking at the same time with the starting rotation. They've had these different years at different times, different moments. I'm not done with Cease. It's just the pitches, man. Sydney brought it up in the comments on YouTube here. It's the amount of pitches. It's the high pitch total. If you can't get out of past 4 or 5 innings, that's a problem, but he is a strikeout pitcher. And when you've got that, chase stuff or that wipeout stuff and they're just not biting, well, you're in some problems.
Yeah.
And he had 8 strikeouts on Sunday, but 102 pitches through 4 innings. I'm sorry.
It's not going to get it done, Nick. That's going to be a long day for your bullpen, and there's no off day, obviously, going to a game tomorrow. So didn't put us in the best position for sure.
Talking about best position and where these folks should be playing, a lot of chatter about Jake Burger playing second base to the point where it's now I believe it's just a foregone conclusion. It's going to happen any day now. He was taking some ground balls in Detroit before some of the games. Grifol has talked about it, how this is again, look, the more they talk about it and there's now video being shown of him, it's going to happen, right? And this is because Eloy Jimenez is coming back, came back on Sunday, got put right there in right field. And Daryl Van Scoven of the Chicago Sun-Times had a great write-up after this game. It was I thought it was very funny, like some of the lines he wrote about. Basically, the Sox gave Eloy exactly what he wanted. Eloy does not want to DH, hates to DH, wants to play right field. It's like, okay, we're going to submit to defense. We are going to absolutely say surrender. We don't prioritize defense. You want to be in right field, go be in right field. Jake Burger, we got to find a way for your bat to get in. Just be serviceable there. Be a warm body at second base.
Yeah.
We'll figure out the defense later. That's how the Sox have operated over the last several years. So where do you see this roster, this lineup construction now with maybe even Elvis Andrus coming back, a Romy Gonzalez that's been hitting lately, and a Gavin Sheets that when he does hit or he does get opportunities, he seems to produce, but I don't know where he's going to play regularly.
Boy, well, this is very interesting because there was years back. It was a couple years ago. I think they were talking about Jake Burger. There was video in spring training of not even in a game, but like in a dome somewhere, on a turf field, just making the turn in terms of, getting flips and throwing to first from second. There was some chatter about it then. It's like, if that was really something that should have been done, and again, different people in charge now in terms of a manager, but boy, you'd think they would have just stayed with it and said, we're going to keep putting you out there at second base and give you the opportunity to grow into that position. But then they went out at the 13th hour and got Elvis Andrus. That never materialized. So, boy, oh boy, Jake Burger's batting in the lineup, especially at home, makes a hell of a lot of sense. This team isn't world beaters when they have their best defenders on the field anyway. So maybe they just say, the hell with it. We suck anyway. The only opportunity we have to win games is, like I said before, we have to employ the multi-home run plan in order to win games. and hopefully there's people on base when we're hitting these home runs. So we have to have our biggest boppers in the lineup. You know what? I enjoy watching softball, Nick. Beer league softball is fantastic. I think that's what we're going to be getting, right? White Sox beer and brews that they always advertise. They should do that every night. Here we go.
But if you're not producing offensively, then at least be a defensive solid team, because they have to win on the margins, this team. It just doesn't feel like they are an 8, 9, 7-run team. They're just not. I mean, they'll explode for double digits and then they'll be quiet for like 3 games. I don't know what their average is of runs scored, but knowing what where they rank in all of baseball, they've got to be in the bottom third offensively with runs scored, because that's where everything else is for them. So you got Clint Frazier. Where is he going to go? What move is going to be made? Is Romy going to be gone? Is Frazier going to be gone? Hanser Alberto hanging around. Andrus might come back. This is the situation that the Sox made them for themselves. They held on to all these guys.
Yeah.
They thought, we're going to have all these different guys and we've got all this depth to play with, but I don't think this is when you've got 5 guys, you got nobody. It just doesn't feel right.
Well, Nick, I wish I could answer your question ultimately and say how should it be constructed. I have no idea. I really don't. But I think it'll be interesting.
What's the bat of those guys, Pat? Yeah, Berger, Sheets, I guess Frazier, Romy, Hanser. Who's the bat that you absolutely have to have? Who's the guy that you're making room for and moving mountains?
Well, I'd like to say it was Berger, but he didn't have all that great of a weekend. But, you're going to go through stretches where things aren't going to go your way. What did he strike out 5 times in the one game? I can't remember what day it was.
Yeah.
So, there's been some valleys. There's been some peaks as well. Today, he should have had any other ballpark would have hit a home run to center field. Unfortunately, it was in Detroit. So maybe he's coming back around. I think he's the bat that you make room for. It just seems to be, I feel confident for whatever reason that when he's up at the plate, something good's going to happen. I can't say that for other guys in this lineup. I really can't. I feel good when Jake Berger's in the batter's box. So I think he's the one you make room for. Romy Gonzalez, again, there's been some good, certainly. He's certainly going to be a better defender. I think he's got a spot. I just don't know if it's going to be up here in Charlotte.
Who are you done with? Who's the guy of that collection that I named recently that you're just like, you know what? I think it's about time that you are kicked to the curb. I don't know how we can go about doing that, but you would like that to happen if it could.
Well, I don't know if there's anybody that I'm like completely done with. Like I'm done with it. I mean, Hanser Alberto, there's no love lost there with a Hanser Alberto. I mean, he probably draws the short end of the stick with me. I think Romy Gonzalez, there's something there. He's a young enough player. He's athletic enough. He can play pretty good defense. He's shown some power. I think that's something that you go, maybe we do want to see a little bit more of this, right? This is a guy that's our guy. There's an opportunity there. Maybe it's just not up with a big club right now. Maybe more at bats type of thing. But Alberto, I mean, a veteran guy that wasn't really part of this team up until recently. I guess that's a guy that would draw the short end of the stick, really. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. I just think he's such a Grifol guy. I think he's on the team because of Pedro Grifol, and that's where I think he'll advocate for Pedro Grifol. Grifol has made comments about, you got to play the cards that you're dealt. And I read between the lines of, well, he's talking about roster construction. He's talking about guys that he really didn't have a choice in the matter. Like, this is what you were given. But there were some guys that he kind of advocated for. And I think Hanser Alberto was one of them to be on this team. He also had a really great Cactus League. I mean, Cactus League hero.
Yeah. Yep.
And he unfortunately hasn't shown me much. And that's the problem, right? He's not going to be an everyday guy, but when he has had moments, I just feel defensively and offensively, I haven't seen enough, like, for me to really, because the season evolves. The situation evolves. There's, I feel like Lebowski, the dude in the Big Lebowski, man, there's, new information is on the table, man. There's been some new things have come to light. And I just don't think you're able to cut it right now. We've got other guys that are stepping up and that can handle the position. We're getting more pop out of, and you kind of have to capture that, right? You've got to capture it and get the most out of it when you're 11 games under 500.
Yeah, and maybe it's the guy that's coming back, Elvis Andrus. Maybe that's the guy that you're ultimately done with, right? I mean, he's not all the way back. I think you give him a shot, but I mean, he was batting under 200 before he went down, if memory serves correctly. He was fantastic.
If he leaves, Pat, if they cut him loose, does he take the home run jacket with him in the hat? Because that was his concept idea.
I mean, I think,
you know what, you're gonna have to come up with your own idea now.
I think I would. I'd be the jaded lover type person. I mean, I took things. I mean, I wasn't in a ton of relationships as a youth, but I always got everything back. That
you always took your home run jacket.
Oh hell back. Yes. Jewelry that was purchased, that's coming back with me. I hope I have the receipts.
Well, I just think he's not the future, of course, and he's one of those guys that look, friend, I think it's the end of the road. We've got some younger guys that have got a little bit more pop, and we're not going to sacrifice anything defensively. You're playing out of position as is. I don't know. I don't know where his place is. I really don't. I know he's a great clubhouse guy, and we always lean on him during his tough years with the Rangers when they had a rough start and they bounced back, and he's always good for those stories. Like Elvis Andrus story time. I don't know if that's enough to keep you around.
That'd be great. Like a nice fireside chat with an Elvis Andrus doing some s'mores and telling stories. I think Texas Rangers, just what I want.
About the Texas Rangers and their bounce back. So I don't know. A lot of decisions, Pat, this, in the next few days, probably coming week, there could be a whole different kind of lineup and roster the next time we talk after this 6-game homestand. They got an off day on Thursday. So it's 3 with Angels, and then you've got 3 with Detroit, right? Yeah. And then an off day, and then off to New York. So right back to the Central after this, but I think zeroing in, exciting for Hendricks coming back. Looking forward to that, seeing what that brings, seeing if Kopech can continue his ways, and then I'm just really curious of how how Pedro Grifol and the coaching staff will line everybody up, and also if Rick Hahn actually opens up his mouth during this beginning of this homestand and actually gets in front of the media.
What are the chances? What are you thinking? 50-50?
Yeah, I think he will, just because he did into the previous homestand, and there's so much low-hanging fruit. He can just go off on Hendricks and how great of a story that is. And, Sox had a better record in May, and, we're starting to get some guys healthy, and, the way the division is constructed, we could see potentially some success moving forward, something like that. As he fiddles with a water bottle and gets very agitated when he's actually asked difficult questions.
Oh, you love a good Rick. Can you've got to still get your credential, right, from getting getting samples of food? Yeah. Can you go back in and be part of the media? You are a media, maven. Yeah. Can you just walk in there and ask some questions?
I don't think they'd let me in. They would screen, lock down, and be like, this guy obviously has it in for Rick Hahn. So, Pat, I lost you. Where'd you go? Pat just went completely black on me. All right. We're wrapping it up here for episode 222. If you joined us on our YouTube channel, really appreciate that. You can subscribe to the channel every Sunday night, usually 8:30, one of those times. We try to go live. You can obviously find this podcast everywhere you find the podcast. Once I get this edited up and sent it out, we're on Twitter at Good Guys TV. We've got a Facebook fan page. Have a great Memorial Day. Safe, happy. Hopefully get out to some Sox games. It's going to be beautiful weather. And thank you so much for joining us on this episode. For Pat Hester, who's lost right now, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.